Train the muscles, not the joints.
Welcome back to Natural Land Bodybuilding, Mountain. And today I'm going to talk to you about my 5 favorite natural bodybuilding exercises. Now, of course, these are not all of my favorite exercises, but if I had to pick 5, these would be my favorite natural bodybuilding exercises that I used in order to compete at the highest level, win the nationals, yada, yada, you know. I can list off stuff that I've done in natural bodybuilding, but what's the point? You probably don't care about it anyway. All you care about is the exercises that I used in order to achieve mountain status. So exercise number 1 shouldn't come as any surprise to any of you who have been around this channel for a period of time, and that is the bench press. I like the bench press. Of course, there are many different variations of the bench press, but the barbell bench is almost nostalgic to me because it's how most people start in the gym, and it's how I started as well, is doing bench presses in the garage with my father. When I was only 10 years old, he was teaching me how to do that. And one of the things about barbell bench presses is that they're not only a chest exercise, they're also a shoulder exercise, a tricep exercise. You work a little bit of the rotator cuff and some auxiliary muscles and so forth. So they're kind of neat as an overall pec, shoulder, tricep tie-in type builder, right? So regardless what purpose you're doing, whether you're doing close grip, wide grip, medium grip, you can achieve quite a bit of results with this one exercise as far as the pushing muscles are concerned. So yeah, this is kind of one of those bodybuilding foundational type lifts. Regardless of whether you find that they are the best for isolating the chest or not, they're still one of those foundational lifts that have stood the test of time. In every gym, there is a bench press. Every single gym, and any home gym, there's usually a bench of some sort. And whether somebody's doing dumbbells or barbell, they're bench pressing, right? So yeah, barbell bench is one of my favorite exercises and was one of the first ones I ever started with. Now, exercise number 2 is the bent over row. Now, this is a controversial movement. I have been through so many discussions with people about this movement because they think that you have to be parallel to the floor in order to get the movement properly to activate the lats and the thickness in the back and so forth. And nothing could be further from the truth. And I did make a video on this specific movement. And if you want to check that out, I'll put this up here, right here. And it is the most misunderstood exercise in bodybuilding. So this will be very enlightening for you guys if you have some sort of thinking that is, let's just say, dogmatic around that lift. You'll start to understand why Dorian Yates rode the way he did. It wasn't because he was lazy or insane. It actually is because that's the way it works best for a lot of people. So when I first started the bent over row, I made the mistake of rounding my back and bending over a lot, just like Arnold Schwarzenegger did. And what it would do was tweak my lower back quite a bit. And I got a little bit of lat activation from it, but there was something that was missing in the movement, and I couldn't put my finger on it. Well, after training for quite a while, because this was in the beginning stages of my training when I was around 18 years old. I started training when I was 14, but when I started doing the bent over row, I was around 18 years old. And what I learned was that if your lower back is not in the proper position, your lower back starts to become more of a liability during that movement rather than your lats. So once I corrected this and did the proper form for the bent over row, I not only could use heavier weights safely, I could also ensure that my lats and my back were hitting failure, but not my lower back at getting tweaked and so forth, right? So the other thing is that if you're doing the bent over row in a way that is suboptimal for you, you'll get a lot of arm and maybe shoulder development from it, but you won't necessarily get back thickness and back width from it. So that's something to bear in mind. So if you're going to investigate the bent over row, make sure you find out how to apply this exercise perfectly for your body type to activate those lats in that back. Now again, I'm not including exercises for every body part, but these are the exercises that were my favorite. So top 5, right? So the third exercise that was my top favorite was the incline curl for biceps. Mountain. So I started off learning the incline curl. My dad taught me the movement and I just naturally took to it right from the get-go. And it naturally just started to work really well for increasing my bicep development. So I know that this is not a common exercise that most people start with. Most people start with the barbell curl, or they start with some sort of standing curl or alternate curls and so forth. But what I accidentally discovered was that the incline curl was superior for giving a stretch to the muscle belly of the biceps brachii. And because of this, I developed, you know, I would say arguably my best body part was my biceps at one point in time. So this was from the incline curl specifically. So if you want to develop biceps and you have not tried the incline curl, I highly recommend it. Now my fourth favorite exercise, and it's more like a love-hate relationship, and that's the squat. Now the squat is one of the hardest exercises in bodybuilding. And it's one of those exercises that has many different variations. There's front squat, back squat, low bar squat, high bar squat. But regardless of how you do it or how you perform it, there is no doubt that you involve so much of the body in this movement that you activate a lot of potential. You activate the body in a very aggressive way. So because the lower back is involved, a lot of the stabilizer muscles are involved, the hamstrings involved, the glutes are involved, the quads are involved. It is a definite muscle mass and strength builder. So I found, regardless of whether I was getting perfect outer sweep results or not, there was something I noticed systemically in my body when I squatted that was different when I didn't squat, especially when I was squatting heavier weight. So this exercise may be harder to master than most exercises, and one could argue maybe you never master it, right? I'm sure Tom Platz would say that. But regardless of what technique you find is superior for you, and I have my own specific technique that I get blasted for all the time, the squat is definitely one of the best exercises to stimulate the overall anabolic response of the body. So I highly recommend squatting if you haven't, or learning how to squat, regardless of whether you're using lighter weights or heavier weights and so forth. Now my fifth favorite exercise is the deadlift, but not the powerlifting version of the deadlift. It is the Romanian deadlift. And the reason why I like this is that you can focus on the perfect angle around the hip to activate the hamstring, especially the hamstrings that are responsible for hip extension, without necessarily straining the lower back. Different people are built differently, and if you get them to deadlift from the floor, some people will have different activations than others. And I mean, I know this is true for most body parts, but one thing's for sure, if you take one person, they could bend over at this angle and lift the bar from the floor, and another person will have to bend right over in order to do it. And some people might arguably be able to stand more straight up and down. Just because of the length of their femurs, the length of the lower back, whether it's a shorter lower back or a longer lower back, whether they have longer arms or shorter arms, you know, they might be built like a Tyrannosaurus Rex like I am, right? So the Romanian deadlift allows you to calibrate your exercise based on the angle around the hip joint instead of just saying the bar has to go from point A to point B. Now, the great part about the Romanian deadlift is that you could also focus constant tension on that hamstring, and constant tension is a major muscle builder, and a stretch under constant tension is a double whammy for building muscle. So you can accomplish both of these things with the Romanian deadlift, and that's one of the reasons why it was one of my favorite movements. Not only that, if you have lower back issues when you're squatting, if you do Romanian deadlifts, you can do them light even, you could start to rehabilitate the lower back so that way it learns how to extend the hip, keep tension on the hamstrings while keeping the lower back slightly arched. And this is imperative if you're going to start squatting heavier weights to prevent you from tweaking your lower back and so forth. So yeah, the Romanian deadlift was one of my favorite exercises as well. So squats and Romanians were the mainstay of my leg training. Of course, I went to step-ups and one-legged squats and leg presses and, you know, different sorts of variations like that. But these two exercises made up the foundation on which I built all of my leg training around. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks a lot for watching. If you need to get a hold of me, just go to naturalgallantbodybuilding.com, and thanks to the Patreon supporters, and take care for now. Mountain. Natural Land.